The Virginia Attorney General is suing 29 real estate companies for refusing to accept tenants with Section 8 vouchers. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the state of Virginia. Now, Virginia didn't used to be known as to be a very progressive, left-leaning state, but more recently, it's just kind of changed, and now it's kind of going the same way as all the other places on the East Coast, where there's just a ton of tenant rights, and they're very anti-landlord, and they're pushing a lot of these bills and legislation that basically is punishing landlords just for wanting to do business and make money, which is completely ridiculous. So the story coming out of there is that the Attorney General in the state is basically suing the landlords who are refusing to accept Section 8 tenants. Now, there is a state law in the state of Virginia that says that it's illegal to discriminate against tenants based on their source of income, and I believe that law was specifically put into place because a lot of landlords there weren't accepting Section 8 tenants. They thought that by putting this law into place, that would alleviate the problem and that landlords would suddenly cooperate. Well, this is a reality check, okay? It doesn't matter if the law is in place or not. Landlords are still going to do what's best for their business, okay? And landlords, in my opinion, should have the right to choose who to accept as a tenant and who not. And if they don't want to accept Section 8, they shouldn't have to. I know it's a state law there in Virginia, but all landlords are going to do going forward is, create new reasons why not to accept these tenants. But it's a interesting situation going on there. But before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think of these laws where states are requiring landlords to accept Section 8 tenants, okay? I believe they're BS, okay? I believe they're, infringing upon our property rights. We should be allowed to do what we want to do in terms of these properties, okay? I'm not saying that Section 8 isn't a good program or a good intentioned program, okay? I'm saying that the way it's implemented, it leaves a lot to be desired, okay? And I do have a Section 8 tenant in one of my units, and the hoops I had to jump through just so I could get payment were quite daunting, and I understand completely now why a lot of landlords don't want to deal with it. But anyway, this article is coming from VirginiaMercury.com, and it says, big name Richmond landlord sued for refusing Section 8 vouchers. And let's see what it says. 29 real estate companies in the Richmond area are facing allegations they categorically refused potential tenants who planned to pay using government vouchers. The companies, named in 13 lawsuits filed by Attorney General Mark Herring on Monday, own and operate some of the city's more recognizable apartment complexes. Every single Virginian has the right to a safe, comfortable home, regardless of whether they have some assistance paying their rent, Herring said in a statement. Blocking Virginians who would use a housing choice voucher to pay their rent is outright housing discrimination and will not be tolerated in Virginia. Well, I understand that's the state law, okay? But to me, it seems like this attorney general is just trying to get political points, that this doesn't actually have to do anything with actually solving the issue, okay? What is the issue with Section 8? The issue is that there are a multitude of reasons why landlords don't want to accept the tenants and don't want to accept dealing with the government. And if they fix those issues, then maybe landlords would be willing to deal with this. But no. Instead of doing that, they're going to try to punish these landlords. I mean, you can tell that this is all about a political scheme because they said that they operate some of the more recognizable apartment complexes, okay? So they were trying to go after the big names so that he can make a name for himself and then, get a lot of media attention, which it worked. I saw multiple articles on this story and it got my attention. So, it did work. Virginia lawmakers voted last year to bar landlords from discriminating against potential tenants based on their source of income, language intended to end many property owners' practice of refusing tenants who rely on Section 8 vouchers to pay rent. Tenant advocates called it an important reform because despite having funds to pay rent, tenants relying on vouchers were often forced into less desirable rental units. Yeah, and that's going to continue to happen, okay? Don't think that this law passing suddenly is going to change any of that, because it won't. Instead of denying the tenant based upon the fact that they are accepting Section 8, the landlord will find other reasons to deny the tenant, be it, okay, well, you don't meet my income requirements, you don't X, you don't Y, whatever. But the truth of the matter is that the landlord will find a reason not to accept it if they don't want to accept it, okay? And this law isn't going to change anything. The only thing that they're going to do going forward is they're not going to say that they're rejecting you because of Section 8. They're just going to do it anyway, okay? And that's the unfortunate truth. So, you know, obviously if they want to help more landlords accept Section 8, the best thing they could do is end all of the bureaucracy that is involved in the program. Okay, I went through it, at least with the local housing authority down in the Kansas City area, and you know, there was a lot of paperwork, and there was a delay before it actually got signed up. Fortunately, I didn't have to go through any inspections or anything, because when I bought the property, the tenant was already in there. Under the program, tenants typically pay a third of their income toward rent, and the government pays the difference. For an apartment or house to be eligible for subsidy, total rent can't exceed a federally established fair market value for the specific metro area or county. In Virginia, that rate ranges from $676 for a one-bedroom apartment in Lynchburg to $1,500 in Northern Virginia. So keep that part in mind right there, okay? The federally established fair market value. That's not the actual fair market value. That's not the actual going rental rate for an area. That's what the federal government decides is the rental rate for the area. Okay, so keep in mind that they only establish the going rental rate once a year. So in areas with a lot of appreciation, with rent prices rising very quickly, guess what? The rental rate will go up, and it might be higher than the federally established rental rate. And that can happen in places like in New York, for example, where rental rates can jump very, very quickly. That means that a landlord might get somebody potentially to come up, and they have a voucher, and the voucher doesn't pay what the going rental rate is for their unit. So why would they want to accept that? Well, in the case of this state, they would have to they don't have to accept it, but they can't use that as a reason to reject these people immediately, even if the voucher only pays a third, 2/3 of what the going rental rate is. So yeah, I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, that just another reason why people don't want to accept Section 8. The Virginia Apartment Management Association opposed the legislation, arguing it was unfair to force landlords to accept the vouchers because the programs require contractual agreements with the government. They also criticized the local housing authorities that often administer the program as sometimes dysfunctional and hard to work with, and I can vouch for that. Herring announced the lawsuits in a news release, but as of Monday afternoon, none of the landlords named in the lawsuits who were reached by the Mercury were aware of the legal action. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like he put out a press release trying to garner attention before they even notified the landlords that, hey, guess what, you're getting sued. Ah, man, what a ridiculous. I mean, this is a political act. It has nothing more than political, okay? I mean, it's ridiculous. At one of the properties in the lawsuit, the Stables Hancock, a representative asked for details about the lawsuit. "Oh," said the representative, who did not provide a name upon hearing of the allegations. At Fulton Hill Properties, whose developments have been financed by the Virginia Housing Development Authority as mixed-income communities, a representative said they would comment after they had researched the allegations. Efforts to reach the other named defendants were unsuccessful. They include the owners of River Lofts on Tobacco Row, Metro Sound Apartments, and the Miller and Rhodes Building. The lawsuits each seek $70,000 in damages and penalties and request a reasonable period of monitoring to ensure compliance going forward. So yeah, $70,000 per lawsuit. Now, talk about ridiculous, okay? So I don't know the exact specifics of it, but it just sounds ridiculous that they're going to charge $70,000. So imagine them, going to a small landlord and saying, "Hey, you owe us 70 grand because you won't take a Section 8 tenant." I mean, come on, you're going to bankrupt small landlords doing that kind of stuff. I don't believe in this kind of legislation anyway, but this selective enforcement stuff and trying to look good for the news media, so probably so that you can try to win some sort of brownie points and win an election in the future. Man, you know what? This is ridiculous. There are better solutions to affordable housing than trying to force landlords into contractual agreements with the government and force them to take tenants that they don't want in their properties.